You got your grandfather's carpentry tools out.
From the panel and the sun.
No,
there it
that's
goes.
way too
That
high.
is way too high. Hi, it's Steph, and today we're going to turn this small patio into a cozy outdoor garden room. When we had our shed installed, probably about 10 years ago now, there was nothing here. But maybe a year or so later, we built this patio, and we thought it would be a nice place to sit. And also I had some planters growing some veggies. That was how my whole gardening obsession started. But after that point, we did go ahead and continue to add on to this space by adding some shed beds, and then later this Japanese maple garden that is right off of this small patio. Now, over the last several years, this area has been pretty lackluster. The only thing we've ever had here is a bench and a couple of planters with some potted Japanese maples. And since this bench started to rust pretty badly, it kind of led me down this road of this place needs a makeover. And so I ended up, looking for a newer bench because this one is at the point that it's beyond repair. It's rusting and it's starting to fall apart at the seams. And then it just kind of snowballed. And for the last couple of years, I've been really thinking that I've wanted to add something to this wall to make it a feature, because when you come up the path from our Japanese maple garden, you're just hitting a plain beige wall of siding. So initially I thought that I would put up some trellises or some lattice up here and kind of espalier or grow some greenery on this wall. But as you can see, this is a paver patio. And so there is really no soil for me to be able to plant a plant into. So then that led me to maybe having some planters that I could grow a green wall. And that is what we're going to work on today. I want to have something visually pretty to look at and sort of a wall of green when you come up our path and into this patio space. Here in the front of our shed, I have this drift or this grouping of little lime hydrangeas. And as these have matured, they're starting to create sort of a wall in this space. And that got me thinking that this kind of makes it feel like this is a bit of a garden room. And so when you come around this hedge of little lime hydrangeas and you enter this patio space, my goal is to create sort of a cozy garden room. So today we are going to work on the living wall as well as adding some things to this space to make it feel more like a garden room in a place that you want to hang out in. Now, this patio space is not very large. It's about 9 feet deep and 16 feet wide. So for that reason, when I was looking for some planters, I wanted to make sure that I picked planters that were not very deep. So I ended up doing some research. I came across a company called DIY Cartel on Amazon that sold these really pretty Corten steel planters. So that is what I ended up going with. Now, when I ordered these, they came shipped in some boxes. They were really compact. They come in panels, so George was able to assemble them for me. They also had some drain holes, which was great, and they were really easy assembly. And you can see when they first come, they show up in that steel color, so they're like a grayish color. But over time, they will patina to a beautiful rust finish, which is really natural. And I thought that the aesthetic would look really lovely in this Japanese maple garden. The patina process does take about 3 to 6 months to age naturally outside with the elements. But there are some steps you can take to expedite that process. And I'm going to insert some footage here of what we did to get the patina started. It's been a few days since we assembled our Corten steel planters, and they've been out here in the elements, and you can see we've had some rain, and the patina and oxidization process is already starting. The coloring is starting to change on the planters. But if you wanted to speed up this process that will naturally take upwards of 3 months, there is a recipe that you can use. And we went ahead and we mixed some up. And what that is 2/3 cup of peroxide, 1/3 cup of white vinegar, and some salt. Now, there weren't instructions for how much salt to use, but what we did was we mixed up 2 batches of the solution, the peroxide and vinegar, and we added 1 tablespoon of salt. And what we're going to do now is we're going to spray all the planters, and we're going to let it dry between applications, and we're going to keep repeating the process until we get the desired effect that we want, which is going to be a rusted patina look. And the next day they already had this appearance, so that's great. I am going to go ahead and rinse these off now really well with some water, because the mixture that we used did have vinegar and salt, and I don't want it to harm my plants. So once I get these all rinsed up, I will go ahead and plant them. We just finished cleaning off this patio. It needed some sweeping and some weeding because it had gotten pretty dirty. So now we have a nice clean space to start working on. And George is also working on hosing off our Corten steel planters again. Because we used salt and vinegar and peroxide, I wanted to make sure that they were nice and clean before we planted in them because I don't want it to harm my plants. And I did do this once already a couple of days ago. And so we're just making sure they're extra clean before we plant them up. You can see as we're spraying them with water, they're getting darker, and that's what's going to happen naturally. As these age, the color will continue to get deeper and deeper. We just power washed about a week ago, but of course there's already bird poop on the siding, so we're gonna get that out as well. While we're at it, this is how cleaning slowly snowballs. Yep. Or I should say quickly snowballs. George, you're wearing my Hooked and Rooted hat.
Yeah, I just got these in a couple days ago.
George was so sweet. Around Christmas, he made me a hat, and I wear baseball caps all the time this time of year when I'm working in the yard, or anytime that you see me at Lowe's or Home Depot doing a video, I will certainly have one of my hats on. But just recently for Mother's Day, he designed a couple more for me, and he made this one for himself with this wood-looking patch. Turned out really nice. The planters are all rinsed, so now I have to plant them up. So I'm going to work on that, and George is actually going to cut some what we would call plant feet, but he calls them something else. What do you call them, George?
I'm going to cut some standoffs. I really wanted it for the back ones. They all have drainage, but I wanted it to be a little elevated so there's actual room underneath where the water can drain freely. So I had some leftover Trex decking, just one long length that was like ripped in half that I've had for probably 10 years. I never knew if I would ever need it. Well, I need it today, so I'm going to use that.
Yeah, because it's weatherproof and it won't rot.
Yep, and it's brown. It's like a dark brown.
We're also going to make a DIY solar fountain. Yeah, so George is going to help me with that. So we're going to go ahead and start getting these pieces together and show you what everything looks like.
So this is the piece of Trex that I was talking about. So I've had this in my basement for like 10 years, and it's ripped down the center. It's 16 feet long. I would probably never really use this, but at the time I couldn't just throw it out because it was so long. So it's dark brown, and it's Trex decking, so it's made for weather. It's never gonna rot. So this is gonna be perfect. So I'm happy that I'm actually gonna use this.
Here's my vision for this space. I picked up this planter at the Home Depot just a few weeks ago, and I thought that this would make a really great DIY water feature. So this is what we're going to use to make our DIY solar fountain. It's just a really tall planter with this stone look. So I think that's going to look really nice. And here are the plants that I chose to go on our living wall. So this is bamboo. And I know what you're thinking. Bamboo, oh, it's so invasive, right? And it can be. But this is actually a clumping version of bamboo, and I will flash the name on the screen. Now, this bamboo I picked up just in April. I had grabbed one of these when I went over to a local nursery, and my idea was to place it in a planter in this space. But at the time, I hadn't yet considered how it would be planted in this area. I later went back and grabbed 3 more once I decided on a living wall. And so this is what I'm going to use. It can get upwards of 6 to 7 feet in height, which should take up quite a bit of this wall. And because I'm going to plant it in planters versus in the ground, it's going to be more well-behaved. So the clumping version of bamboo is better behaved and less likely to be invasive. And another way that you can keep it from going crazy is by putting it in a planter. So that is what I'm using along this wall here. On the smaller planters, I've decided on these 3 plants. I have a coral bell or heuchera in this beautiful dark plum color. It's actually called Grape Expectations Coral Bell. I also selected a Hakonakloa or a Japanese forest grass, and this is the Macra All Gold, and a fern. This is called a painted fern ghost. And I thought that the colors as well as the texture would look really nice in this container. So this is the combo that will go in each of the 12-inch planters. Now we're also going to put our bench in here, and I'm not really sure where the placement is going to go. I would like it to be in the front here, in front of the planters, so that when you come up the path, and also when you sit here, you have a lovely view. So we're going to have to play with that placement. And lastly, this is the soil that I'm going to use to plant up the planters. I'm going to use a mix of the Coast of Maine potting mix, or the Bar Harbor blend. And I'm also going to use some of the Coast of Maine Castine blend, which is a raised bed mix. Because these planters are fairly large, I did want to use some raised bed soil in them. So I'm going to do a 50-50 mix of both the potting mix and the raised bed mix, because it's going to keep it nice and fluffy and provide a lot of nutrients for the plants that I'm going to place in the containers. I always use coffee filters at the bottom of my planters over my drain holes, and I just find that it helps with the soil runoff so that it won't stain your surfaces. It's just a habit that I got into, and I just do it. The coffee filters will break down over time, but it helps for a little while. I usually stack them about 3 or so. So fibrous. It's worse than cotton wood.
You want me to do it for you?
No. This is tough.
Using your grandfather's hand tools?
Yeah, I mean, this works well. I've used this a bunch of times. I found it in the shed. It's one of your saws. You said it's a hacksaw. Is it
it's just an old handsaw.
A handsaw. Well, yeah, it works well. My hori-hori wasn't putting a dent in it because, and this worked so well, the hori-hori, to divide perennials, but because this bamboo is so fibrous, even this saw is having a hard time getting through it. Look at this. Oh, this is hard work. I'm a sweaty mess right now.
Slow and steady.
It'll get done, yeah. But what I'm doing is each one of these pots of bamboo, I bought 4 altogether, and I have 2 planters. So each one of them I'm dividing into 2 so that I can stretch them along the length of the 2 planters. All right. I got 2 of them out. Look at this. So now we just got to keep going. I think that's going to work well. It's the next day and we're going to start assembling our DIY solar fountain. And the first thing you'd want to have is a vessel, right? So here we have a pot, and I picked up this one that's pretty tall, but the important thing is that you get one that does not have drain holes so that it can hold your water and your fountain. So that is what we have here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some pots in it just to give a little bit of height, because we're going to place some beach rocks on top. And of course, I don't want to fill the whole fountain with beach rocks. So what I did was we just stacked some pots inside to give it some height, and this top pot is what's going to hold our solar pump, the water, and then we're going to sit some lathe on top with some rocks where the water will bubble out from on top. So we're going to kind of show you what this process looks like, but what George is doing now is drilling a hole on the side of the planter so that we can put through the wire for the solar panel.
All right, fits perfect. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna feed this through the bottom of this planter and then up and out through that hole. So see, pumps in there. And go through here. All right, so now this is out of the pot, and this is gonna go to our solar panel. And this is what's gonna feed the water from the pump, and we're gonna trim it once we have our rocks in place.
We had a roll of this material in the shed, and it's called lathe. And what we're going to do is use this as a screen to sit out on top of this green bucket here. And that is going to hold our pebbles or our beach rocks where the water is going to kind of spout out of. I used the pot that I have inside the planter to make a template with cardboard, and that is how we cut our lathe in a circular pattern with one of these wire cutters. And here you can see that we placed it right on top of the green planter that is holding our pump. And now we're placing some of these beach rocks that we bought. We purchased a bag of beach rocks, and we're going to place them all on top around the tubing for the pump. And then once we have all of our rocks placed, we can cut the tubing to the proper length. Here's the bag of beach pebbles that we purchased. I got this at the Home Depot, and I really liked the size of them. And we placed them all in our water feature planter here. You can see George is just filling it with some water now so we can test the pump. We placed our fountain before we finished filling it up with water so that it wouldn't be too heavy. And now we're just trying to find the sun. As you can see, the sun isn't strong enough on our panel, so it's only coming up a little bit on the hose. I have a personal solar panel holder at the moment. And
new job.
Yeah, it's his new job, right?
No, but the idea is we're probably going to go up alongside the corner of the shed and mount it up at the top.
Yeah. It is now full sun in our patio area, and this solar kit came with a bunch of nozzle attachments, so we're testing out a couple of them. And I'm shading the panel, and now I'm going to back away from the panel and the sun.
Oh, no,
there you go. That is way too high. That is like a splash pad.
It's actually pretty strong.
Yes, it is actually.
Can you cover up the panel?
Yep.
Put a different one on.
So I'm shading it with my body here so that we can switch out the different nozzles.
I have no idea what this thing's going to do. All right.
All right, I'm going to back away. Oh, that one's nice.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's like a bubbling. That's perfect. That looks good. I like this one. The solar panel came with a stake, so we decided to put it in the corner there, in the corner of the mulch bed, to see how it works out. And if this works pretty well, we'll just keep it there instead of mounting it up high like we initially planned. Right now, it seems to be working pretty well. Our garden room project is now complete, and we really love the way that it turned out. So I'm going to walk you through the space and show you some of the changes that we've made. The first one was that when you come up this path from our Japanese maple garden onto the patio, there used to be just a plain wall of tan siding with a bench that is now rusted. So we made the addition of these beautiful Corten steel planters, and we added some bamboo to them. The bamboo will get taller over time. This variety gets to be about 6 or 7 feet in height, and these Corten steel planters will continue to age to a dark bronze color over time as well. Now, the key thing about these planters were that they were not too deep, and these here measure about 48 inches in length, 16 inches in height, and only 10 inches in depth, which was perfect so that it wouldn't take up too much space on our patio. Along the way here in the corner, we placed a DIY water feature. And the downside of a solar fountain is that unless it is really sunny, it is not going to work. So currently it is shady in this spot, so it's not bubbling. But later this afternoon, when it does get some sun, we will show you what it looks like. A new bench. We needed a new bench because our last one was metal. It was several years old and it was starting to rust at the joints. And so when you sat on it, it kind of felt like the seat was going to break, and it just got to the point where it needed to be replaced. This one is a great material. It is made out of some kind of poly type material that is weatherproof. So it should hold out for a really long time. And what we really liked about it was that it came with some cup holders, which have a cutout in them to hold a wine glass. So you can place a bottle, a cup, or a wine glass in them, which is great because before we used to set our drinks on the ground. So I think this will be a great bench for this space. It was made by Bona, and we ordered it from Home Depot, and I can place the link below. These planted or potted Japanese maples we've had for several years in these planters that I had purchased at Ocean State Job Lot. They're absolutely beautiful. They're made out of concrete material, and I really love them. So I'm going to keep them here in this space.
And that's an autumn moon and a dancing peacock.
It is. Yep. This one is the dancing peacock and the autumn moon, and they're really beautiful. And they're really happy in these planters, so we're going to leave them there for a little while. And then I also purchased 2 of these 12 by 12 Corten steel cube-shaped planters to add at the entrance to the steps here into this patio space. And I really love the combination of plants that I have here. I added a ghost fern, a heuchera, as well as a Japanese forest grass. This is the all gold. And I think the combination both of color and texture play really well in this container. I really love the way they turned out. And lastly, I had this bistro set for several years in our shed that some years I bring out and some years I don't. And this year I decided that it would make a really great piece to place in this corner space here as another place for people to sit. So in total, we have room for 4 people in this area, and they're across the way so they can have a conversation. And it's another great place to place a drink and to just hang out. A couple of final thoughts as I wrap up this project. This bench placement is ideal. I initially thought that I would place it in the same place it's always been, which was up against this wall. But once we placed our Corten steel planters with our bamboo, I didn't want to cover up these beautiful planters. So we went ahead and we put this bench here. And it is perfect because up ahead, I have the view of my limelight hydrangea hedge. Over to the left, I have the view of our Japanese maple garden. And right behind me, I have an orange dream Japanese maple, which will continue to grow and make sort of a canopy over this space. So the vantage point is beautiful. So I'm really happy with the placement of this bench. Now, this project was a little bit more spendy than I normally like to spend in my channel because I am a budget-conscious gardening channel. So I try to do everything affordably because it's what works best for us, and I like to be transparent about that. So I will tell you that this project, all in all, cost us around $1,000, and that was because we had to purchase the furniture for this room, or the key pieces, such as the Corten steel planters as well as this bench. Add in some accessories like our plants as well as a DIY water feature, and that's where the cost came from. But all in all, we're really happy with the way that everything turned out, and we're really looking forward to enjoying this space. So thank you so much for spending your time with us, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button, and please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. And we'll see you soon.